Howdy, y'all. Ego here. Today I want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima's duels and why I love them so much. Found this awesome article where the director talks about the duels themselves, so I figured, hey, what better time than to talk about it? Today's article comes from GameRant.com from Daniel Park. Thank you, Daniel. Ghost of Tsushima's director talks about the game's duels. In a gaming landscape that has seen several sharply realistic releases lately, Ghost of Tsushima sets itself apart by adopting visual styles from its cinematic influences. You got that right. They nailed the Kurosawa mode, which looks just like one of those old school movies, all black and white. It kicks the wind up a lot, so I mean, Jin's robes are constantly blowing in the breeze, and like any little tassels on the sword and on the helmet, all your little charms, everything, and all the way the grass is constantly going, really ups the drama a little bit. Although the game's photo mode puts a heavy focus on its lavish graphics, critics have also praised the gameplay with a focus on the variety of sublime combat. Yeah, the photo mode is a video in itself. That's a powerful mechanic. And the way you can do the moving photographs and keep the environment animated is really cool. Have been having a lot of fun with that. If you've been taking photos in Ghost of Tsushima, share them. Let me see them. Now that the game is out, developers and directors at Sucker Punch Productions are contributing to the discourse around the game by revealing their mindsets when putting the final touches on the finished product. While several of the developer interviews have focused on the game's narrative, the creative directors have also taken the time to talk about how Ghost of Tsushima's mechanics set the game apart from its contemporaries. One such interview with Comic Book allowed Sucker Punch creative director Nate Fox to go into detail about the game's duel mechanic. Yeah, this is what I really wanted to talk about, the standoffs and the duels. I absolutely love the standoffs in the sense everything just kind of stops for a second and it's just you and the enemy kind of facing off for just a brief moment. You got to hold down triangle and wait for them to attack, but they'll feint you, and sometimes they'll feint more than once, and I've got caught a couple times. But it's a really cool mechanic that slows the combat way down, really lets you focus in on the world, and puts you right in that moment, that hard sword slashing, gut wrenching moment. Pretty brutal, and they delivered it great. And you can upgrade to where you can get other people to come into the standoff. So as you take down one, another one comes in, the next one comes in, the next one comes in. I'm not sure the limit on that. Right now I can only do two, but I really think it's a lot of fun. It's a really great mechanic and adds to that epic samurai feel, that Sucker Punch was going for. When asked about the most important elements of Ghost of Tsushima's duels, Fox emphasized the team's desire to draw upon samurai cinema to create a tense yet serene atmosphere before a duel. Fox also noted that the developers made sure that every duel maintained a certain skill level. Specifically, the game requires the player to understand and adapt an opponent's fighting style without using other mechanics and weapons as crutches. Okay, so it seems like the different bosses aren't so much going to be based on your level rank and where you are at that point in the story, but you can pretty much beat them, I guess, no matter what level you are, as long as you're good enough and can fight them, read their movements in time, and get that move in, catch that opening, get that perfect parry. Fox also discussed sword binds, the brief pauses in combat where the player and the boss cross swords and interact with each other. The creative director continued by explaining that the interludes allowed Sucker Punch to develop the relationships between protagonist Jin and the other fighters. Now those are awesome. I had a boss fight like this recently in the Kurosawa mode stream, which I'll link up here somewhere somehow. Which was really cool. I hadn't tried Kurosawa mode yet, and the fact that I came across a boss in my first time through was actually a lot of fun. Um, But pretty epic, pretty tough. It took me 3, 4 times to take him down, maybe more. Um, his moves, he was pretty aggressive, not very big openings on his moves, and it took me a while to really figure it out, learn how to, time it just right. But it was an epic battle, especially in the Kurosawa mode, that with the extra wind and then the way the colors were all muted, the way they were all black and white was really, it sort of made it really tense, and I wonder how it would have been in the normal game, but how it was fucking awesome. After all, this would allow the players to understand the reasons Jin engages in these deadly fights. They did exchange, a couple words as to like what was going on. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I do remember, when the swords locked for that moment. I thought I was gonna have to mash the button. When the swords locked for that moment, they actually did kind of have a brief exchange before they, sort of pushed off. Although the developers did not intend the interludes to be breaks, Fox said he was glad that people were able to take a breather if they needed, which makes sense. That was a pretty tough fight, like I said, I'm an early level. I'm not, you know, a professional or anything, so it was kind of tough. By drawing upon a unique influence, Ghost of Tsushima has successfully set itself apart from the other AAA competitors in both pacing and gameplay. Overall, the Sucker Punch title masterfully uses every mechanic it has to embody the swordplay and spirit of samurai films. Now that I couldn't agree more. This game, it gets compared to Red Dead 2 a lot. I think that's, a fair assumption. The amount of detail that went into the world and the different mechanics, really, really in depth, very in depth. The world itself is just huge and beautiful, which has been said a million times. Let's jump into another piece here and see how they talk about the different mechanics. Ghost of Tsushima devs explain why there's no lock-on mechanic. Something I was curious about myself. Ghost of Tsushima does not have the lock-on mechanic available for players, but the game's narrative director says that it was left out for a purpose. Now, this article also comes from Game Rant by Quinn Mathis. Thank you, Quinn. The action-packed game has many fans enthralled with its storyline and intense gameplay, but players are missing one mechanical element that is typical of most action-adventure games. The game's narrative director revealed why Sucker Punch left this mechanic out of Ghost of Tsushima. Like I said, that's a question I had because I noticed there wasn't one. I don't really think the game needs one as you move the joystick back and forth and, to choose the different enemies all around you. And Jin himself, he does a pretty good job of locking on. I very rarely find myself shadowboxing. That mostly when I do, it's my fault. Now I'm just mashing the button. I get excited. Ghost of Tsushima follows the story of Jin, yeah, we know, a samurai warrior on a journey to save the island of Tsushima from the invasion of the Mongol Empire. During this adventure, Jin faces many different opponents. However, the game doesn't provide players with a lock-on mechanic, which is typically used to help target individual enemies in fighting scenarios. Let's get into like why and how they didn't do that. Nate Fox, the narrative director for Ghost of Tsushima, said that the lock-on mechanic was purposefully left out. During the research for the game, Ghost of Tsushima's developers watched many different samurai films to analyze the fighters' movements and fighting styles. So I wonder if the lack of a lock-on was to give it a more organic feel, to give it less of like a rigid combat and more of an organic, sort of a dance, free flowing. Jin kind of just moves from place to place without being stuck on one enemy or another. Sort of makes sense. That's just my opinion, though. Just speculating. Let's see what Mr. Fox says. Fox said that one thing he observed while the samurais in these movies fought was that the sword people had to quickly change their focus from one enemy to another as they fought through groups of adversaries. Fox said that including the lock-on mechanic in the game would prevent players from focusing on the groups coming at them. Instead, they would be honing in on individual enemies and miss the atmosphere the game was trying to emulate. So yeah, pretty much what we were just saying. it seems like they did that on purpose to make Jin feel more fluid, more open, more easier to control. And the camera does sort of pan back a little bit when there's like groups around you to get these really nice wide shots of the action, and you can really see the fight unfold. It kind of adds a whole new level of, I guess, the cinematic feel, which again keeps getting brought up, but they nailed it. I can't say it enough. They nailed it. Great picture here. Fox also said that adding the lock-on mechanic to the game would ultimately hinder the player's ability to effectively fight enemies. Since the game mainly focuses on fighting multiple opponents at once, locking on one person would make it harder to respond to the actions of others. While the lock-on mechanic, without the lock-on mechanic, players can move more fluidly between enemies with the grace of a true samurai. Now, that's just like we were saying, Jin just seems to move seamlessly in and out of all of his animations from parry, block, roll, attack, counter attack, all that stuff. He just has, there's no pause, there's no break. He's here, he's there, he's here, he's there. Very seamless, very, again, there's that word, fluid. And again, I play on the higher frame rate, so it's buttery smooth. And Jin just seems to, glide around the battlefield, like a damn ghost, like he's this otherworldly sort of swordsman. Even though Ghost of Tsushima doesn't have the lock-on mechanic available for players, getting a broader view of the battle allows fans to experience the fight in a more similar way to a historic samurai. Ghost of Tsushima is available now on PlayStation 4. Okay. Yeah, anyway, like I said, it seems like they left the lock on out to make Jin feel more graceful, more fluid, make him easier to control in like wide open spaces. And there's been a few times where I got caught in little narrow passages like in the stables and such. And that was actually kind of handy where I wasn't stuck looking at one person or trying to turn off the lock on or switch targets. It actually came in handy and probably saved my ass, and I didn't even realize it. So good on you, Sucker Punch. Now, back to the standoffs. The standoffs, I think, add just another level to the cinematic flair of the game, especially with the Kurosawa mode. It really makes it feel like you're watching just an old school scene from one of those old movies. And I don't think they could have captured it or emulated it any better. And the fact they went to great lengths to to make it look just like a Kurosawa movie was pretty special. And the way the music falls in line to really give it that tense but yet peaceful feel, really add to the drama of any given situation. Using the wind to guide you is, I think, fucking really, really unique and interesting as hell. The fact you don't have, a little path on the map. It can be a little tricky sometimes, but, you set a marker and the wind just blows in that direction. And then, hit up on the touchpad and you get another gust and these big, like, huge gusts of wind go by you that you can, they stay on the screen for a little while to make it easy to follow. Really not as, you know, hard as I thought it would be and more open, and the markers don't really pop up till you get a lot closer. So they're not just dotted all around everywhere. You got to search for them, and search areas aren't just like marked out clearly. There's been a few times where I have accidentally exited the search area, had to go back, but that's not a complaint. That's just me, being used to like looking down in the corner for a mini map or something, and the exploration is just a lot more fun than most games because with the birds coming out of nowhere and having or leading you to a place of interest. They've shown me haikus. I found weapons from them one time. One of them led me to, I think, people in trouble, and I found foxes that lead you to the shrines and dens. And it's just really interesting, unique mechanic to get you into the world, exploring the world, and you're looking at this beautiful environment that these developers, work their asses off to create. And instead of looking down at the in the corner of at a little map, you're actually looking up and you're in the world. You're in Jin's shoes and Jin's armor. And I just think that's a really cool, unique way to kind of take this sort of game. Anyway, I'm having a blast with Ghost of Tsushima. I just wanted to talk about why I love the standoff so much and talk about a little bit more of the combat right from the developers. I always like to see what they have to say. I'm always trying to learn more about the games behind the scenes. That's what we do here. We try to do some info on behind the scenes stuff, read cool interviews. We do gameplay videos and live streams. Right now we're playing Ghost of Tsushima because I fucking love it and it's an awesome game. If you haven't played it, I would play it. I'm not very far, so I don't know how the story shapes up, so no spoilers. Before we go, I want to say thank you to all of the subscribers. You know, you guys really like that passion for me, like that fire. It make me want to, stay up late at night in front of the computer, making videos and digging through articles, finding cool info to share. And I have fun. It's all stuff I like to do. I like to game. I like to edit videos and make little movies and such. So for me, it's just a lot of fun. And the fact that, you might take a second out of your day to watch the video or leave a comment, hit the like button. It's fucking awesome, honestly. I mean, there's a million things on YouTube you could be watching. You take a few minutes out of your day to watch my stuff, and that's really cool. I really do appreciate it. Like, sending the love. Thank you. And before we go, I want to send a huge shout out to one of the YouTubers that inspired me. His name is DM Gaming. He does a lot of gaming stuff, info, news, a lot of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot stuff, which I learned a lot about that game from his channel. I'll link it down below. I'm pretty sure I could do that. But yeah, I'm sure he'll probably never see this, but DM Gaming, thank you, man. You're a huge inspiration to me. I even wore my Vegeta shirt as a little homage to you. So thank you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're inspiring people out there. You're informing people. And for y'all who haven't played Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, check it out. It's a hell of a game. Dragon Ball Z fans, I waited 30 years for that game. I've always wanted an open world Dragon Ball Z game where you get to play as Goku. That's exactly what you get, as well as getting to play as other characters, and you can do racing, and there's little time trials and robot races, and you can do the time chamber and train everybody up, and there's different capsules and all the cooking you can do to get different buffs and recipes and level everybody up to the max. And it's a lot of fun. I think they just added like the time machine and such. I've not played the game in a while, but again, if you like Dragon Ball Z, if you like anime, if you like open world RPGs, I'd recommend giving it a try. The fighting is right out of an arena fighter, because you're flying around the open world and then enemies pop up and you're flying around, darting around fast as hell, shooting energy blasts. You go Super Saiyan. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it. I also recommend Ghost of Tsushima. But that's about enough for today. I just wanted to rant a little, kind of share my opinions on Ghost. Shout out to DM. Thanks again, man. Huge inspiration. If you guys liked what you saw, I appreciate you hitting the like button, leaving a comment, because it does help us grow. If you didn't like what you saw, hey, thanks for hanging out to the end of the video and chatting some games with us. This has been Ego. You're beautiful. Stay true to yourself.